You are right, too, to point out that the structural mismanagement has happened in Sri Lanka for a very long time, including this president's brother, who was the former president, and this current prime minister, who was the former president. The cabal remains the same, doesn't it? And this is important stuff because, when you're sitting down at the table with the IMF, who usually come to the table with a very strong view of what should be structurally changed within economies in order to get their funding, they always come in with their own plans and their own designs. Aren't they going to be looking at this and going, we need to see some evidence that this is going to change before we give you any money?
Look, for sure. And at the end of the day, we've been to the IMF 16 times, and this is going to be the 17th time. And if you look at it from the point of the IMF as well, even the last one that we had, the IMF Extended Fund Facility, did not get completed. So I think at this point of time, even though the requirement for the IMF assistance is dire, I think the outline of the program is definitely going to be a little bit more stringent than what it was. But that being said, I think, it's not only the IMF, because even if you look at what we could get from the IMF, and assume you get a $3 billion lending facility, that essentially is not sufficient for what the requirement in Sri Lanka is right now. Because if you look at it realistically, you'll probably get about 300 million per quarter. I think what's more important right now is that signal that we will give to the international market to say, okay, look, there is some direction where the government is heading in terms of curtailing their fiscal deficit, curtailing the overall primary deficit, getting it into a surplus. And I think this time around, we've got to have a very strong structural reform agenda and to show where the economic plan is headed.
Of course, there is the other side to this coin, which is that the IMF's structural realignment plans for other countries over the course of the past few decades have often been as problematic as they have been helpful. Do you think that what the IMF is going to bring to the table for Sri Lanka is actually appropriate to the conditions of the country?
I wish we had a plan B as well, but very realistically looking at things right now, we've got our bilateral partners like India and China who've helped us in the past. If you look at getting continued assistance from these lenders, I think it would be a bit difficult because if you look at the assistance from India through credit lines alone, India has given us roughly $4 to $4.5 billion of credit facilities. So expecting something like this to continue is not a very realistic plan going forward. So I think at this point, yes, we do need the IMF, the funding facility and the program in place to give a little bit of assurance for the direction the country is going to take in the next 4 to 5 years.